Hello YouTube, it's Lion here with Hobbies of Man once again, and today we are doing another book review. Today we are going to be looking at an original English light novel. This light novel that we're looking at is Towers of Acalia, The Reincarnated Core, Volume 1, which is written by my buddy Atlas Kane, who is also TJ Reynolds, and it's illustrated by Arina Chaika. Sorry if I mispronounce their name, but names are hard for me, so I try my best, but sometimes I just don't get it right. And this is self-published on Amazon, and I think the book is available on Kindle Unlimited. I don't know how you would purchase it without Kindle Unlimited, though, because it doesn't show you a price. Like on the website, I guess. I don't know. But it is available for physical printing for $15, which is a little bit pricier than, like a traditionally published book, but it's the pricing is because of like single printing. Apparently it's quite expensive, so there you go. Now the genres here are isekai, general fantasy, like what's called medieval style fantasy, gamelit, and that you can argue that it's haremlit as well, because although there isn't like a real harem yet, the story is set up so that it is a harem at the end of the story. So I definitely say it's haremlit, and it has elements of cultivation in it, which is a type of progression fantasy that's mostly based on Eastern kind of like spiritual, like martial arts kind of stuff. I think it's from Taoism. I'm not exactly sure on the details, but it's like things that you would read on like web novel and Wuxia, I think, and stuff like that. So yeah. Now, the premise here is basically that this average salaryman named Rin dies a tragic death. He basically gets crushed by furniture, and it kind of sucks, but he gets reincarnated into this new world, and, there's like this god-esque kind of figure that comes down and talks to him, and she's like, hey man, you get to be reincarnated, but like this place that you're in now has like spiritual problems going on with like the energy of the world, and I need you to cultivate your spirit, your inner energy, and help me save it. So yeah, and then she basically assigns him a quest, right? He has to conquer the Towers of Acalia, which is where the name comes from. And in order to do that, he has to do a bunch of martial arts training, very like meditative type of stuff. And he needs to level up, and he needs to, gather these people called vessels, which are all women since he's a man, and that's how the world works. And yeah, he has to conquer these towers. And what actually happens is that the story is actually pretty fun. This book focuses on the first tower and, the general setup of the world, which is, quite a lot. And so I'm guessing that we're going to have 7 different books, 1 book per tower, and then maybe an 8th book at the end that deals with, like, finally saving, this world and, kind of, like, setting up the end of the story. But it was really enjoyable. Like, my buddy TJ Reynolds always has very clear-cut, easy-to-understand prose that I really enjoy. I just don't like flowery language all that much. And Atlas Kane has a very good way of like having a little bit of that flowery, more kind of like metaphorical language while still maintaining a very clear and easy to understand way of writing. So I really like that. I also really enjoy just like the time that he spends fixing like the main character's issues as an individual before he actually goes adventuring. A lot of times we kind of skip past those in these isekai type stories, and I'm quite happy with that. But yeah, let's actually get into the review since it's already been like 5 minutes. The plotline here is super solid. It's super enjoyable. It's relatively slow at the start. I mean, I think it takes about the first 30% of the book before we actually get him like doing any adventuring of any sort. But all of that first 30% of the book is actually pretty important to both develop the character, set up the world, and, actually make us care about the things that are happening, right? So I really appreciate that. I would say that the first 10% of the book is all of the isekai general stuff. Like, we get introduced to Rin. He tells us like how his life is currently in our world, and we get introduced to his like really attractive co-worker. Then he dies, he gets reincarnated, and then we get that whole kind of like transition from normal person to reincarnated hero type of thing in the in between the 10% and the 30% before the first adventure. That 20% there of the book that we get is filled with Rin, understanding who the person that he was reincarnated as is, fixing all of the problems that arise from that other character's, life, and then preparing himself, right? And I really like that because we actually get to see our character, try and practice and remember that, he's not really a martial artist in our world, but he has the memories of this other guy. So he needs to practice so that the memories of that other guy assimilate with his own, and so that he actually can like fight. And it's a really cool technique that, Atlas Kane used here with the kind of meshing of two different minds in order to minimize the exposition and the training in such a way that it's still there and it still feels, like you're going through the initial tutorial phase grind without actually making it so it takes a whole book, right? Which is something that happens pretty often. And I really appreciate that. After that, he finally goes on his first adventure, and I really enjoyed that section of the book because we see that, relatively speaking, this is actually not that hard for our main character, but there are still elements of danger due to his inexperience. And we see him, dealing with that inexperience and developing a little bit more battle sense, I guess, as he goes through this. And then we finally see him go home and lick his wounds and prepare himself for the next adventure before he gets to the first tower. And, after he gets to the first tower, that's when we really get the really fun, kind of more harem-lit aspects of the book. We get a little bit of romance, we get a lot of action, and then we kind of move on into the end of the book there, where like we get the resolution to one of the issues that he couldn't fix at the beginning in the first 30% of the book, as well as set up for the next book. That was all very well done. I really did enjoy it. It's just like Atlas Kane just writes really well and very well planned out, and I really enjoy it because it's just so nice. It's really just enjoyable to read. So Atlas Kane did a great job with the plotline here. Now the characters, they're all pretty good. I really enjoy them. I think the group of characters that we have is pretty fun. There's really not that many. There's only about like let me see. There's Rin, the main character. There's Astra, the main female character. There's Min, which is like the secondary female character that gets introduced first, but isn't really like as big as Astra. And then we have Grown, which is kind of like Rin's mentor. He's like friends of the guy that used to take care of the original person that Rin reincarnated as, who was also called Rin. And then his wife, which is Ren. And then like we have a bunch of like store owners that, interact with our main character to an extent. Like there's Mattias Weaver, which is the bad guy. We have Annis, which is the woman that takes care of like the magical ingredient shop. And then I think we have Colin, who is either the trapper or the guy that sells armor. I can't remember, but there's both of those characters as well. And there's a few other things and people here that we kind of interact with throughout the story. But really the important ones are Rin, Astra, and Min. So Rin is your average guy, but he also was reincarnated into the body of someone else that had just recently passed away, which is a cool kind of a reincarnation type of story. I actually quite like it, especially because of the ramifications that occurred that actually I already mentioned before, which is the fact that there's essentially one mind with two different sets of memories, and throughout the story we actually get to see Rin kind of work to either assimilate or kind of get rid of the stuff that isn't exactly necessary. But he still kind of is forged into one person from those two other people that, inhabit this body, which is kind of interesting. I actually quite like it, and I really enjoy it because like I said earlier, it's a good way to overcome the exposition needed and the, grinding aspect of this type of story in a way that is actually pretty satisfying, because he knows all of these things, but he actually has to try to remember them and review them in order to actually learn them. So it's actually pretty cool. I really do enjoy that. And Rin also happens to be a runesmith, which is a type of occupation which allows them to imbue magical aspects onto these special stones called spell shards. And so what he does is basically create skills for himself and for other people, and people pay for it. It's actually pretty cool. We don't really go into detail about very specific detail about how this stuff works, and there's really no kind of necessity for us to know these things. So I really appreciate that Atlas Kane didn't take a chapter to explain how everything works beyond the basics, because it would have been kind of annoying honestly, if we spent so much time learning about this when it's kind of important, but really not the most important aspect of Ren. So it's pretty cool. It works really nicely and it's pretty fun. And we do get a little bit of that kind of crafting type of plot line there. But it's pretty minimal, and I actually quite enjoy it because it allows our character to do a lot of different things without having to be trained in them. So that's pretty cool. I really enjoy that. Now, Min is this living weapon. She's kind of like the characters from Soul Eater, but instead of being a person that turns into a weapon, she's a weapon that turns into a person, kind of. And essentially she functions as a kind of AI info dump kind of character, in the same sense that Cortana does for Master Chief in Halo, right? I actually quite like that. But of course, Min is a lot lewder and significantly more cutesy than Cortana would be. It actually kind of reminds me of this other book in Hamlet. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's just Dragon Slayer by Michael Scott Earl. I think there's this magical stone in that story that has a woman trapped in it, and she talks to the main character in Dragon Slayer, which is actually pretty cool. I really enjoy that. There's also some other original English light novels that have this kind of similar premise. But yeah, Min's a pretty fun character. I really enjoy how she interacts with Rin, because a lot of times she sends him images and she talks to him in his mind, and all of these images are described in such a way that I can clearly see the anime girl doing these things, slumped in defeat, really tired, sweaty, all of these kind of ideas that I can really see quite easily in an anime kind of style. And I really enjoy that because, it kind of fits. I actually wish we had illustrations of Min, especially doing some of those empathic kind of showing how she feels type of stuff. But overall, I really enjoyed her. She was a pretty fun character. Not very big, but significant enough to have an impression on me. And then the big important character here is Astra. She's the badass female warrior character, and technically all of the female characters that we see were at one point badass female warriors. It's just they kind of get old and do different things, right? The lady Annis and Ren used to be vessels and warriors, but now they're store owners because they're just old now. So it happens. But Astra is kind of that Urza Scarlet type of character, Red Sonja type of character, where it's a badass cute girl with this giant sword, which is super awesome. I really enjoy that type of character, and I really like her specifically because she comes off really tough and rugged and badass, but she also has this very soft kind of girl next door type of character to her that I really enjoy. It's such a interesting juxtaposition of two kind of opposing character traits that I really enjoy because it has a certain amount of freshness to it, associated with this. Because, usually the tough, badass, rugged female character is also going to be a lot more like rough around the edges, or she might be immensely proper most of the time, kind of like Ursa Scarlet. But, having this kind of like cutesy girl next door type of feel, something like Ochako Uraraka, is really cute, and it has a very nice kind of like counterbalance to the rough exterior that she has, right? So I really enjoyed that. There's a bunch of other characters, but really there's none that are really any more important than what I mentioned. So let's just move on to the world building. So the world building is super fun, cool stuff. Generally, the exposition is done in a very easy, clear, and concise way, which I really love, because I say this every time, but I really hate when giant fantasy stories feel like you're reading a textbook. I really don't dislike it that much, but it's just kind of annoying sometimes. So I really appreciate when, exposition is done in such a way that it doesn't feel like you're reading a textbook, and I think Atlas Kane did a great job with that here. Again, using that technique that I said earlier about, bringing your character in with the memories of the original owner of the body so that he knows these things and just has to recall them in order to relearn them. So that's really good. I also really enjoy the kind of setup and development that is done for the world so that we can, understand the general premise of how this world works and then learn more as we go tower to tower. I really like that. Sometimes, authors kind of forget that they have to set up the world and kind of hint at things without actually telling you everything right from the beginning. And so I really appreciate that Atlas Kane did this, so that when we move towards, different towers and different places, we can learn some of those things. And then I really enjoyed how the cultivation was really easy. Sometimes, at least in my experience, the cultivation genre, when we're looking at Western writers using it, kind of gets bogged down in this very like spiritual-esque type of mumbo jumbo type of stuff. Not that I'm saying that the spirituality in the real world setup that is, used in order to come up with cultivation type of stories is mumbo jumbo. But what I'm saying is that, the authors tend to get bogged down in trying to make it all spiritual and kind of like fancy and, metaphysical, when it really should just be like, yeah, they just get mana from the earth or from around them, and then they just like turn it in their bodies, and then they raise their levels, which is basically what happens here. It's really not this crazy like super spiritual type of situation that has to happen every time they want to raise their level, which I really appreciate because it's just easier and it doesn't feel like you're reading, something like a religious text while you're, listening to how he cycles mana in his body. So that's cool. Although I keep saying mana, but that's technically not the correct term. The correct term here is spirit. And what happens is that, there's a well of spirit within Rin's body, which is in his core. His core was broken, then he got it fixed by this godlike character. And what he does is he goes, kills monsters. They release nature, spirit, energy into the world. And he enters a meditative state by just like breathing in and out, like very deeply. And through the process of that, he basically increases the amount of mana or spirit energy in his core. And then that allows him to gain progression. When he gets to the thresholds for the progression, he raises a level by bonding with a vessel, which is, one of the female characters that he needs to kind of interact with. And yeah, that's basically how it works. And I really appreciate that because it doesn't get bogged down in, that the spirituality of it all, which is good. Now, there's a bit of art here that I really enjoyed. The beast illustrations, like the animal illustrations, were really well done. I really like them. In fact, I like them so much I wish they were in color. I understand that, they're not going to be in color because light novels really don't have that many images in color anyways. And, the color image that Atlas Kane did give us is actually a character sheet. So I actually quite like that much better. well, it's not a character sheet. It's like a portrait of Astra. So there you go. And the character illustrations that we get, which are we get 2 beast illustrations and 2 character illustrations, and they're both of Astra, plus the one at the beginning with the color. And I really like them. Astra just looks really cool, and the art style kind of reminds me of the art style from One Punch Man. Not exactly. I'm thinking about a specific character. I think her name is Fubuki. It's like the woman with the green hair and the really long dress. But I don't exactly know why. It just kind of reminded me of her and like this. I think it's Murata that draws the One Punch Man manga. Kind of his art style, and I really liked it. It's just really nice. Now, fan service here, I actually quite like it. There's only technically one smutty scene, but you know, the whole book is filled with our main character noticing that women are curvaceous and they're really attractive, and you know, kind of maybe not waxing poetically about it, but like letting you know that, you know, all of the women that he's interested in are very, very attractive. So, you know, some people might not like that. So, you know, obviously don't read this if you don't like that type of stuff. But, you know, it's there, so fair warning, there you go. Now, rating-wise, I think this is a solid 4 out of 5. It's super good. It's really enjoyable, but I didn't really feel that anything was particularly unique. The most unique thing was Rin's double body mind melding thing. But really, it wasn't like super crazy. I've seen things like this before in other media and in other books, so it's really not like that unique to me. But it was handled really well, so I don't really think it's. I don't feel like I can give it anything less than a 4. So there you go. That's what we're gonna get. Now, I definitely recommend this title. I think it's super fun. If you enjoy this type of story, cultivation, vague, you know, kind of game element type of stuff, this is really definitely for you. Now, titles that are similar to this, I think a few other of T.J. Reynolds or Atlas Kane's books are pretty similar. Dragonborn, specifically, is probably the most similar one, since that one is also pretty much based on cultivation. And I also think Tower Climber, which I just reviewed a few days ago, is actually pretty similar as well. It has that kind of general idea of cultivation in it, and it, you know, both deal with climbing tower levels to different extents, right? Like in Tower Climber, you climb a level at a time, whereas this one, the adventure is to climb a whole tower and then move on to the next one. So there's kind of a difference in scale there, but generally they're relatively similar in premise. They also deal with like main characters that are kind of like zero to heroes, which is actually kind of quite common in most of these books. So there you go. But I think that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And see you guys later.